Mr. President.
The senator from Oklahoma.
Mr. President, I also would like to be able to speak to the issue of the objection on this. For the Land and Water Conservation Fund, 29% of all the land in the United States is already under federal ownership. Now, let me clarify for that. This is not federal control, federal ownership, 29% of the land. There's $20 billion in deferred maintenance on that land, $20 billion. So there's a significant issue that we face here where there's a tremendous amount of land that is owned by the federal government that is not being managed properly, including over $11 billion of dollars of that just in our national parks. It's not being done. The issue is here, what is this Land and Water Conservation Fund going to be used for? Continue to acquire new land. It's actually prohibited under the structure of this account to actually do any of the maintenance. So we're continuing to acquire new land constantly and expand the land holdings, already at 29% of the total property in the United States. But we're not doing maintenance on what we already have, and we continue to complain there's not enough money to be able to go around to get things done. If only this was the only program that actually did land acquisition and federal control. In the past several years, there have been 130 conservation banks also set up by Fish and Wildlife Service. Now, there's 130 different conservation banks that are scattered around the United States actually take private land and set it aside, what they call perpetual set aside. This is land that's still in private ownership, but that is under conservation that can never be changed from its current status. Just in the recent decades, 160,000 acres have been moved into that in what they're calling these conservation banks. So just to reiterate, we have this growing amount of land that's being taken into federal ownership through the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And then we have a separate set of programs, and this is only one of many programs that's moving other land into federal control and mitigation. And we have this expanding control of the federal government. Now, we should have national parks. We should have land that's set aside for public use. That's not the issue. But we're not taking care of what we currently have. Now, the key issue here is what do we do with this program and how do we reform it? As has already been mentioned, is the key issue. If the Land and Water Conservation Fund has a reform, there are ways to be able to handle some of our deferred maintenance and the backlog that is there. If it doesn't have any reform at all, we're continuing to purchase new land. But one key thing that's in this as well, as it currently stands right now, the Land and Water Conservation continues to function. Nothing changes about it. The only thing that changes as of tomorrow is that we're not adding new dollars into it. $20 billion is already sitting in that fund. Enough money to fund this program at current rate for 65 years. 65 years worth of savings that's already built up in this program. I think it's fairly safe at this point. Strangely enough, the Land and Water Conservation Fund is more stable than Social Security is. So the argument to say is that there's some urgent emergency here to be able to take care of it and to continue to add dollars to it without reform, I think won't work. We need to reform this program. We need to manage carefully the land that we have, and we can do that. So I would highly suggest that the committees continue to still do their work to be able to continue to reform this program. And with that, I would also join in the objection to extending it as it currently exists today. With that, I yield back.
The senator from New Mexico.